Welcome back, Inebri-ites. This is Andy, the Inebri-art podcast, who is always irritating fish as much as humanly possible. And today we're recording from the New World Tavern down on Main Street. Great place to come and eat. They have music a couple times a week, so if you happen to be in Plymouth, come check it out. Mm-hmm. And we have an unusual guest today.
I'm unusual?
You're unusual. Well, your title is not really your title. Why you're here is an unusual reason.
Sure, yes.
We'll find out if you're unusual by the end. So I met.
Probably.
So it's since he's speaking already, it's Geoff Peterson. Welcome to the show. And I met you at Soundcheck Studios networking night.
Correct.
And they had some vendor tables, and I went over to see what you had, and I was kind of confused at first, and then I'm like, I've never seen anything like it. So you've created a songwriting journal. Is that the correct way to?
Yes.
Okay. So What the hell is that?
Oh boy. Well, I'm sort of happy to hear that you've never seen anything like it, because that might mean I'm onto something. But
I'm also not a musician, so that could be. But I don't. I know I've seen musicians with notebooks and such, but this seems a little more organized than that.
Right. So basically, yes, I'm a musician and songwriter myself, and I was just kind of running out of time to make music and finding it hard to focus on the craft. And you know, I keep myself busy with lots of different things, and this just kind of started to get edged out a little bit. Songwriting and making music. So there were a few things that I noticed I kept doing over and over again, such as writing chord charts out, making this little target thing that sort of helps me with defeating writer's block. Okay. And I also just kind of felt like I was just tired of doing all of these things over and over and over again. So I went on a search for a songwriting journal to kind of help me organize all of these things, all the sort of process that I use, and I couldn't find anything. I found some songwriting journals that had chord charts, but nothing else, and they were kind of small. They're beautiful, but it just didn't really fit what I was looking for or wanted. So I'm also a graphic designer. So I just figured, well, I'll just design something for myself. So I just started designing it, and at first it was sort of just an idea that I had in mind for myself, but as more ideas popped into my head about what I could include in it and what I wanted to do with it, I sort of began to realize that other people might find it useful. Right. Other songwriters. So kind of from that perspective, I began to think about how I could make it more flexible to kind of fit the needs of a general audience.
Maybe people have slightly different writing styles than you?
Yeah, slightly different writing styles, different thought processes, different ways to connect ideas, you know. So it turns out that I came up with this journal that is fairly comprehensive in what it offers a songwriter, and I believe that it will help people save time and stay focused and defeat writer's block and stay organized. And it's helped me a lot too. So, you know, I would imagine it would help others.
And you debuted this at that event, didn't you?
Right, yeah.
So what was the overall feedback on that initial night? Were people kind of stoked by it? Or?
Yeah, they were very stoked by it. It was very, very exciting for me because I literally heard about the event 2 weeks before.
Yep.
And I had been kind of sitting on this for a little bit, just tweaking it here and there, not really knowing exactly how I was going to put it out there. And then this event came up on my news feed, and I figured, oh wow, that would be a perfect event to launch this. And I noticed that they had vendor tables, so I reached out and explained the idea, and they offered to have me come and present it there and launch it there, and the feedback was fantastic.
Yeah.
Going from not really knowing what I was going to do, and then 2 weeks later to come to this event and, sell more copies than I thought I would. Just have tremendous feedback, to share stories about songwriting processes and hear the struggles that other people have, and how this might help them.
Yeah.
It was fantastic. And then you came over and we spoke for a little bit.
Yeah.
It was cool.
Like I said, it intrigued me because I'd never seen anything like it. And one of the things I kind of like about it is it's kind of, and where it's not a prototype, but it's a very early version. So
right.
I'm sure that's part of it too, but it's very stripped down. Like, it's not, I've seen people with sketchbooks and be like, that sketchbook is so gorgeous, I'm afraid to draw on it.
Right.
Because like, I don't want to put something crappy in it. This just seems very utilitarian. Like, it looks like a workbook, something that you'd use and you'd use on the regular and kind of keep it on a music stand or something.
Right. Yeah. I designed it to be very neutral.
Yeah.
Right. So that anybody could pick it up and use it and not feel like it's pulling them in any sort of direction. It's all in black and white or grayscale, and the front cover is just white because I figured, people would want to draw their own,
put their band sticker on it or whatever. Yeah.
And so there's a note to the songwriter inside where it's sort of an introduction and explaining the backstory to it. And within that note, I even say, just make it your own. I mean, tear this letter out if you want, burn the edges, whatever, just do what you want with it.
I used to, now I carry a calendar, but I used to always carry a notebook. It shows you how my life has changed. And one of the things I always loved about it is how it kind of became its own, like each one became its own thing. Different things would get stuck inside of it, and someone would, draw on it, or, I'd write a phone number, and so you could like reflect back exactly where you were at that time. Yeah. And I feel like this is kind of this is like a sketchbook for a musician.
Yeah, basically. I thought, I thought to myself, if anyone's going to pick this up and look through it, I want them to envision their work in it.
Yeah.
So I didn't really want there to be any sort of of course it's going to influence how someone does something because there's a format. Right.
But it's pretty open. Like, there's not... Right. Yeah, you can kind of tweak stuff around as much as you want.
For sure. And a lot of thought went into this. Like, everything's faded, so if you don't need to use something, you can write over it easily. Right. And it was pretty neat speaking with someone at that networking event, another singer-songwriter whose band just released an album. The band's name is Bright and Dark. They're awesome. You should check them out. And she, the lead singer, was telling me about how when she starts to write a song, she has a different way of organizing the different connections she makes between topics and subjects. So, she said she got one of these, which was awesome. And she had mentioned that instead of using this sort of target thing that I have in here, she'd probably do sort of like a, what's it called? Can't think of the name right now, but a certain type of diagram that works better for her. Sure. And that's great. Like I said, everything's faded, so do what you want.
Yeah, you could draw right over it, and it wouldn't really be that, it wouldn't obscure anything.
Right.
So it looks like you have some things that represent frets and keyboards. Yep. And you have your bass clef and your treble clef.
That's right. Should I do a rundown?
Is there a use for a drummer?
Ooh, that's an excellent question.
I mean, one of my all-time favorite jokes is what kind of people hang out with musicians? Drummers. Because one of my best friends in high school is a drummer, so we used to say that all the time. But, I mean, is it something that would fit all musicians, or is it,
Yeah. So that's a great question. I think that it could. I think that it could fit all musicians. It has, the musical clefs here, and they could add more, so a drummer could notate their rhythms if they wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Overall, this initial journal is probably geared more towards guitarists.
Right.
It's because that's my main instrument.
Sure.
But I do include, piano keys next to the chord charts.
Mm-hmm.
There is staff. So I'd imagine that it could be used by a lot of different...
if you played a cello or an oboe, or you could probably figure something out.
Probably figure something out. But I do plan on expanding the line.
Yeah.
I would love to design something that is more piano-based, even though I think this would work okay. But, some feedback I've gotten has been to maybe include another sort of lyric sheet with more staff. But, so that's stuff just kind of down the line.
Right, yeah. And, I mean, like I said, the format is you could easily just kind of add to it as you go.
And I think it's helpful that all of this is sort of on a spread, right? So each spread is sort of the house for one song.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Right? So you have everything organized. In one spread, you have your chord charts, this tool to help with writer's block, space for your notes about the song info, musical staff, space for guitar tabs, lyrics. It just...
So when I looked at this initially, I do have a little bit of background in music, so I was able to kind of go, okay, that's what that is. The bullseye thing, I don't understand at all. Can you tell me kind of how that came to be and how you use that?
Yeah, sure. So
this is a visual thing for our listeners. It's a 3-ringed bullseye shape sort of thing.
Yeah.
Best way to describe it.
Yeah.
So you have the inner bullseye, which says topic.
Mm-hmm.
The next circle around it says surface connections.
Mm-hmm.
I'm reading upside down. And the outer ring says deep connections. So kind of like walk us through what those are.
Yeah. So this is a tool that I used with my first graders.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm also a teacher. I teach first grade, and every class at my school has a year-long project. So I decided to do a songwriting project.
Okay.
So I trying to write songs with 6-year-olds.
Oh boy. Jimmy, you can't use that word.
Excuse me.
Daddy says it all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
A lot of redirection, but no, it's great. They do a great job. And so basically, I just try to think of or try to find or come up with something that that could be simple enough for them to understand too. And it worked so well. Are
you implying musicians are the same as first graders?
Well, I'm just... No, Andy. I'm just implying that it's simple enough and it worked very well for them. And I think if 6-year-olds could write a decent song, a pretty decent song, using this tool, then I think that anyone could use it.
I joke, but the simplest tool, the most versatile tools are the simplest ones.
Right.
Like, there's a reason why everybody owns a hammer. It's a simple tool, but, you can use it for a ton of different, you hit things with it, but...
Absolutely.
I mean, if it's simple, everybody can use it, it's approachable.
Right.
Why make it more complicated than it needs to be?
Right. And so, basically how it works is, in the center is the topic or theme. And in that center circle, you might write what your song might be about.
Okay.
In the sort of example I give in the journal, I have songwriting as the topic.
Okay.
So then in the surface connections, in the circle outside of that, is sort of where you would write your immediate connections. So the things you first think about. So when you think about songwriting, I don't know, what's the first thing you might think about? Chords.
Yeah.
Sure. Genre, rhythm.
Sure. Yeah.
Instruments, whatever. And then in the outer circle is where you'd write the deeper connections after you've sat with it for a little bit or put more thought into it, sort of what comes up. So for example, here I have what it means to be a song, or, don't take it too seriously, art versus design.
Yeah.
Kind of ideas that have a little more juice to them.
Mm-hmm.
And then using all of these ideas that you've gathered about your theme, you could just build your
lyrics from
that.
Huh, that's interesting. Have you, through the course of showing these to people, has anyone been like, oh, I've never thought of doing it that way, and kind of like latched onto it?
Not exactly. People have said this is a very interesting way to do it.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of how I do this. There's been some connections to it. At the same time, it's kind of only been out in the world for 3 weeks.
It's only been a few
4
weeks,
right? So I have gotten some reviews back from some people who bought it. They haven't mentioned that specifically.
Yeah. That's got to be one of the toughest parts, because, chords are chords.
Mm-hmm.
Lyrics are lyrics. It's a straight line. You write the words on it.
Right.
But to, come up with a way to be like, oh, this is a good way for people to come up with an idea, and that's got to be a challenge. I think it's a really interesting format. I'm curious to see how people use it.
Thank you. Me too, man. I really in that note to the songwriter, I encourage whoever bought it to follow us on Facebook, but then also tell us how they use it, post photos of it, share their music, because I'm really curious what people do with it.
Yeah.
My biggest goal really is to just kind of help people, help songwriters with their craft, and this is the way I figured I might be able to do that.
Nice. How long have you been in music in general? This seems... I feel like when most people pick up the guitar for the first time, they're not like, I'm going to write a songwriter notebook,
Yeah.
What was your initial draw to music, and
Yeah, that started way back when I was a kid. My mother's side of the family is very musical.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't play instruments really, but music was constantly on. We went to many local concerts, and my mother was always singing. I'd drive around with my grandfather in his pickup truck listening to Benny Goodman and pretending to play the drums and the clarinet and whatever. And then
those kids in their air clarinets.
Oh, right. See them everywhere, huh? And from there, I got hooked on to hip hop. Underground and independent hip hop.
Mm-hmm.
When I was, I guess I didn't go directly to underground hip hop. I think I was maybe 8 or 9, and I heard Tupac's Changes, and I was just...
You were 8 or 9 listening to Tupac?
It was on the radio, man. Hey, man, all of us in the neighborhood, would just throw in tapes or whatever, and there were older kids, and I heard that song, and I just became enamored. That was the first song I learned all the lyrics to. Don't ask me to rap it now; I wouldn't be able to remember them.
Yeah.
But so then I was just super in underground and independent hip hop, all the way in up to my freshman year in college, and then I went to school for music, and I wanted to own a record label, and had all of these big dreams.
Oh, of course,
and then I graduated right when the music industry collapsed, and so that was that. But when I got to college, I was much more in the mix with people who, just rock musicians and folk musicians. Because where I came from, it was mostly everyone was listening to pop or commercial hip hop, and I think that's also what drove me more towards independent.
Oh, sure, yeah,
and underground hip hop, because I was like, can't stand this. Like, where's the substance?
I was very much that way. Like, I was a kid in like middle school and high school. I would read like, oh god, this is gonna date me so bad. I'd read like Circus magazine,
yeah,
and I'd read the interviews to find out like what the musicians I liked were listening to, and then I'd go out and find that. So it would be like some obscure band, and then like that band would break big, and I'd be like, oh fuck that, I don't want to listen to that anymore.
That's amazing, man.
Yeah.
It's like that's what we used to do before Spotify, kids.
Yeah, I mean,
and Pandora.
Now it's so easy. Now you just go on like YouTube and type weird hip hop or something. And,
oh man, I used to just go to FYI and Newberry Comics and all those places and just go through the hip hop section, letter by letter, album by album, and just literally pick out anything and just be like, oh, give this a shot.
Oh, really? So just like at random investing your money. Like, wow, that's
yeah.
I would at least kind of like. I remember there was one specific one. It was an interview with Axl Rose, and they're like, "Oh, what are you listening to?" And like he rattled off these bands, and I listened to them, and it was like Soundgarden and Faith No More, and like within a year's time, they'd blown up, and like everybody was listening to them.
Right.
So it's strangely easier to find new music, but it's almost more crowded.
Right. Totally.
Because you literally have access to everything everywhere.
Right.
Do you actively try to find new stuff, or do you just kind of like wait for it to kind of come to you? Or
not as much as I'd like to anymore. A little bit,
yeah.
But now it's kind of more often than not a passive search. Like I'll just put on a Spotify playlist and hear a song I haven't heard, or artist I haven't heard, and if I like it, then the active search kicks in.
Right, to be like, oh, who is this, and what else have they
right,
done?
I do the research.
Is that a one hit kind of thing?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of bands where you're like, hey, this is a really good song, and listen to other stuff, you're like, wow, okay, so that one was a really good song.
Right.
So you got exposed to folk and rock.
Yeah.
And how did that affect your music? Do you...
Oh, wow.
Because I saw your book. I didn't hear you play. I'm assuming you aren't a hip-hop artist.
No, not any longer. I used to, produce, make my own beats and get up on stage and rap. But when I went to school and because I had never learned music theory, I was just kind of doing everything by ear in high school, and then when I started to learn music theory, I became like, I fell in love with it, which is weird because I don't think a ton of people, musicians, are really into like are really super into it.
Yeah.
But I kind of became a music theory nerd, and then from there, I was making hip hop beats and everything, but then I just had the urge to sort of explore outside of that and go into weird time signatures and just different sounds, and so I think hanging out with the rock musicians and the folk musicians and being in the music program, and there were definitely some amazing hip-hop artists there too.
Yeah. It's weird because when you think about people going to school for music, you tend not to think of hip-hop artists going. I tend to think of like overly skilled guitarists who play metal music that are now like crazy good but aren't quite metal, and
sure, right, right. Well, hip hop can get super technical,
really?
Way more technical than I think people give it credit for.
Yeah.
Someone once described, a rapper's flow as like the phrasing in a like a guitar part or a trumpet part, or
well, it's kind of being equal parts musician and poet.
Right.
I mean, I suppose every songwriter is that too. I suppose that's not fair, but
it's
yeah.
I mean, and hip hop artists need a good voice.
Right.
The voice is something that you can spend forever just to get down. Even for someone who's rapping, I don't think people think about that much. It takes work, to sound good.
Right.
Rapping and the articulation. I mean, it's not. Some people definitely make it look easy, but
I think that's probably part of why it doesn't get the credit, is people look at it and it's some dude that's standing up behind some sort of, bench or cabinet, and you can't really see what he's doing.
Right.
He's pressing buttons, and then another guy with the microphone, and you're like, well, shit, who can't do that?
Yeah.
And then you're like, a lot of people can't do that.
Right. He's right.
Because you don't even know what that guy's doing behind that cabinet.
Right, for sure. But I was feeling these sort of constraints, and whether or not they existed is a different thing, but I was just feeling it.
Yeah.
And so I began to branch out into other genres and experimenting with different sounds and synthesizers, and just kind of seeing how weird it could get. But
some of my absolute favorite things to listen to is weird shit.
Yeah, man.
Like when you mash up things that don't belong together. I went and saw Go-Go Bordello a couple summers ago.
Go-Go Bordello.
They were amazing. I'd heard of them. I kind of knew who they were. They put on a hell of a show.
You don't know Go-Go Bordello until you've seen them.
Yeah, and I became a fan from watching them, and I'm like, I'll go see them again if they come around. But it's punk gypsy music, I guess, is the only way you could describe it.
Yeah, man. Like gypsy punk rock.
It was a great ticket. It was Flog and Molly, Go-Go Bordello, and this other band that I'd never heard of, Mariachi El Bronx.
Okay.
Who I'm super obsessed with now.
What is Mariachi El Bronx?
Mariachi El Bronx. There's a hardcore band called The Bronx, and the guitarist showed up one day for rehearsals, like, I want to make a mariachi album, and they're like, all right, let's do that.
Yes.
And it's way more mariachi than punk, but it's great. It's really, really good.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I love mariachi music, and I mean, and with punk, I mean,
it was such a weird mix. And it's funny because, growing up when I was in school, it was you were one thing or the other. You were a metalhead, or you listened to rap, or you listened to U2. Yeah. Do you feel that's changed? Do you think that it's been more of a melting pot now, where everything's just kind of smooshed together?
I do. I think that. I mean, with the internet, so many things changed, but, especially access. So, I think kind of when we were growing up, most of our access was the radio, or, I don't know if you were into MTV.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
And so, people had their favorite radio stations, and radio stations generally played to specific audiences.
Yeah, there was very little cross. I remember Run DMC and Aerosmith crossed over, and then Anthrax and Public Enemy.
Right.
And, that was earth-shattering.
Earth-shattering.
I literally think that's how I found out about Public Enemy, was because I listened to Anthrax, and I'm like, who the hell are these Public Enemy guys.
Yeah. So I think now, I mean, you can hear anything anywhere, and there's more awareness. That I think people have more awareness about kind of what they like musically.
I also feel like people are less judgy about other people's choices.
Right.
I mean, you're still going to have that, like, oh, you listen to Katy Perry?
Yeah.
But fuck it. If you like Katy Perry, listen to Katy Perry.
You know? Yeah, exactly, man. And then with that, I think that there's, I think mainstream music became stale, and some might say it's always been stale, or
it's more bland.
More bland
because it's got to appeal to more people,
right?
Yeah.
But I hear some mainstream artists now doing some weird things.
All right, I'm going to put this out there. I am man enough to say this. I'm a Miley Cyrus fan.
Hey, man, high five.
Because she has teamed up with some weird fucking people.
Right, the Flaming Lips.
The Flaming Lips, that's exactly what I was thinking about. I'm like, and it's a really good song.
Yeah,
I mean,
man.
it's a Beatles song. It's not like it's a different song, but it's a really good version of that song.
Absolutely, and she covered some Zeppelin at one of her shows recently, which I thought sounded pretty neat.
And I've seen her, featured on a Will.i.am song, and I'm a fan.
Hey, you know, dude, I'm not ashamed to say this at all.
Men can like Miley Cyrus.
Men
right?
can like Miley Cyrus, and
hashtag Manly Cyrus.
I can support that. I can throw that hashtag out there.
Nice.
I really love Shakira.
Really?
I do.
I know I'm not super I probably only know one song that, like, it's the one song that everybody knows.
Yeah. Hips Don't Lie.
Maybe. I don't know. It's just the one that was on the radio all the time.
Yeah.
Really? Shakira?
I do, man. It's I'm not embarrassed to admit it. I can't tell you exactly why, but I really like that Hips Don't Lie song that she had with Wyclef Jean and Praz from the Fugees.
I'm going to have to go back and listen to that. It's probably the one that I'm thinking of, but yeah. Let me ask you this, put you on the spot.
Uh-oh.
Most embarrassing concert you've ever been to?
Oh, boy.
Because I have a good one. I lost this, and I still...
You know what's funny? I saw Hannah Montana.
Shut up, really? I feel like you're almost age appropriate where that's okay. It wasn't like recently, right?
It was, no. And it wasn't on purpose. It was, I did I lived out in LA for just a little bit, and I was at a outdoor shopping center called The Grove. And there were a bunch of Disney stars there, performing, and she got
That's
up
like
and
a big
performed.
shopping center there, right?
It's a big shopping center.
I feel like I've heard of that.
Yeah. So that's how I saw Hannah Montana / Miley Cyrus. And I bumped into Billy Ray Cyrus walking through the crowd. And he just kind of looked, because he's a big dude. He kind of looked down at me a little bit and gave me this... just kept walking.
Mine was Yanni.
Yanni?
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, not necessarily on purpose, but,
hey,
I saw him.
You saw him, for sure.
You didn't.
I did not.
What was the best show you've ever been to?
Wow.
Or is there, like, a favorite band that...
Oh, man. Okay. I can tell you... Oh, gosh. Well, I saw Guns N' Roses.
Yeah. Recently?
Yeah, pretty recently. So I lived in Medellin, Colombia for a little bit.
Okay.
And on their last world tour, or one of the last ones, they went to Medellin. And, I like Guns N' Roses, but they're not a band for me that I put on and listen to a lot, But I have to say that show was absolutely phenomenal.
If it was when they first started touring again after like forever.
Yeah.
Because a friend of mine reached out to me and she's like, "We're getting Guns N' Roses tickets," and I grew up like in the heyday of Guns N' Roses.
Right.
And I'm like, she's like, do you want a ticket? I'm like, yeah, that's fucking never going to happen. I'm like, yeah, give me a ticket. And then, I don't know if it was the same down there, but up here, Lenny Kravitz opened for them.
That's cool.
And so I'm like, fucking Lenny Kravitz?
Hell
yeah. And it was an amazing, amazing show. Like, I thought Axl was going to suck.
Right.
But he killed it. And it was phenomenal. Every once in a while, you'd be like, I don't know what song they're playing, but it's still pretty cool.
Yeah.
It was a great show.
My mind was blown.
Yeah.
Truly, I mean...
it was like they never had that whole feud and time apart.
Right.
Yeah. I
was in shock. It was almost like... and this is an absolutely ridiculous thing to say, so I'm just going to throw it out there. But it was... I feel like watching that show, I was like watching one of the most important things happening on the planet at that time.
I could see that. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
I was just... It was just... And they played for like 3 hours.
It was a long show, yeah.
For a full 3 hours, I was just completely like blown away. I couldn't believe it. It was, and I'm not a huge Guns N' Roses fan, but
But it's one of those things
unreal.
like I'm trying to think of a band like. You know, you may not be the biggest Led Zeppelin fan, but if they went on tour, go fucking see them.
Yeah.
You know, that's you know, if Mozart was going on tour, go fucking see him. You know, like that. They're huge. They're one of the biggest rock bands of all time. Go see them.
Right. So, I mean, I think that's maybe the biggest band that I was most blown away. Kind of, best show I've been to, but. I mean, there was an underground rapper in Boston named Insight.
Okay.
And I don't think he's doing anything these days, but I used to go to tons of shows in Boston, underground shows. Even in high school, I'd go into Boston like two times a week.
I had no idea there was such a vibrant hip-hop scene in Boston, but we recently had a Brandy Blaze, who's a hip-hop artist. I think she's out of Braintree.
Cool.
But performs in Boston and whatnot.
Oh,
and she's like, oh, yeah. She's like, there's a huge scene. And I'm like, I had no idea.
Yeah. I mean, I'd go and it was always packed. And, I'd go to so many that I'd a couple of them sort of knew me by name, and I'd, interact with them a little bit. And this rapper, Insight, was so incredibly engaging, super fun. He would freestyle about the crowd and draw on a big whiteboard what he was freestyling about.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he this one time he cooked up this fried chicken.
Okay.
And had a big sort of pan of fried chicken. And, I'd go to his shows a lot. So
if there was fried chicken, I would go to any show.
Yeah. Well, this is like these are the kind of things he'd do.
That's crazy.
So he saw me and he's like, "Hey man, can you help me out with this?" And I'm like, "With what? What do you want me to do?"
Yeah.
He's like, "Can you just carry this thing of fried chicken around the crowd? And as you're carrying it, I'm just gonna freestyle while walking around the crowd behind you and pass out the fried chicken to people." I was like, what?
That's so
Are you
weird.
freaking kidding me right now? Hell yeah, man. I'll do that shit. And there was another time he passed out cups to the crowd and was walking around pouring orange juice out.
Yeah.
He had this song he has a song called 17 MCs where he raps in 17 different voices and styles.
Yeah.
And he'd do it live, flawlessly. But he'd have, he'd get up on stage and he'd be like all... puffy and just because he wore 17 different outfits. As he was rapping, he would take off the outfit and switch it to
be the
yeah. I mean, he was amazing. And those are some of my
and that's kind of one of
favorite
those
shows.
It makes it an experience beyond just the music,
right?
Which I feel like not everyone gets. Like you can hear someone has an amazing voice, but if you don't have that presence, if you're not entertaining, then if you're just going to stand in the middle of the stage, stationary and just play,
right?
People are going to be like, yeah, he's good, but I mean that's the difference between being good and blowing people away.
Right. So I mean, I saw Black Sabbath when they came around recently.
Really? Yeah.
Incredible. I was lucky enough to see Rage Against the Machine.
Oh, nice.
Which was dope.
I don't think that'll ever. I don't think there's going to be a reunion tour for them ever.
No.
Yeah, it's like I look back at the time, it didn't seem like a big thing, but I look back at some of the bands I've seen, and you're like, I saw Stone Temple Pilots and Cypress Hill at the same show.
Wow.
I went to see the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and there was a band opening, and I'm like, who the hell are these guys? And they're like, oh, the lead singer used to be the drummer for Nirvana. I'm like, oh, cool.
Wow.
And it's like, I didn't even know who they were.
Yeah.
And now it's like you couldn't get tickets to that show.
Right.
So it's just a weird kind of like looking back, and, go see live music. There's nothing like it.
There's nothing like it. No way. I mean, your favorite band that you've never seen could be completely different live.
Yep.
And it could just...
And you could be... So I'm going to give a shout-out to a former podcast guest. He's got a great show. Mm-hmm. He's also affiliated with Soundcheck Studios.
Cool.
His name's Jeff Rosen.
Oh, yeah.
You know Jeff?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he plays every other Tuesday at the British Beer Company on Middle Street. It happens to be an every other Tuesday. It is this tiny hole-in-the-wall, don't ask for food, there is none. Like,
love it.
It's this ratty old bar, and he plays on Tuesday nights, and he calls it Naked Tuesday. And
who wouldn't want to go to Naked Tuesday,
right?
Man?
And it's just like, and people are like, are people really naked? I'm like, no, but Jeff is one of the best local musicians I've ever seen, and one of the least serious people I've ever met.
Yep.
So it's this weird, he'll sing songs that he doesn't know the lyrics to, and halfway through you're like, he's just mumbling. Or he'll change the lyrics completely. He plays songs in different styles, and 90% of them are obscene, and then he'll sing a song to Jaeger, and it's just this fun... It's one of the most fun shows, and it's like everybody goes to it. Like, it's all the local people, a lot of restaurant people, because they'll get out of work and they'll go to it.
Sure.
It's just dumb and fun.
Sure.
And it's
I have to go, man.
Oh, it's just it's so much fun.
See,
it's stupid, but it's fun.
Well, stupid and fun,
Jeff.
Yeah. Jeff is well, I just because when I went to Soundcheck to launch this, that was my first time there, and who was it? I think Gigabit, the company that put together.
Yeah, they did the sound or something.
Right.
Yeah.
The owners came over to the table and they loved it, and they went to go get Jeff to bring him to the table to introduce me to him.
Yeah.
And then I learned that he does a songwriter night every Wednesday at Soundcheck Studios. Mm-hmm. Songwriters from all over just come in and share their songs, and we, critique them and write songs, and it's different every week. I've actually only gone twice. Last week was my second time.
Yeah.
But it's awesome.
He is. I say there's this like Plymouth mentality of you can walk up to some certain. If they have the right mentality in this town, you can walk up to them and be like, I have an idea. And they're like, great, let's do it. And I'm like, I haven't gotten to the idea yet. And they're like, I don't care, let's do it. Jeff is one of those people where you can be like, I have this really stupid idea. And he's like, great, let's do that.
Yeah.
And he's, it's, if you can hear my voice, get to Plymouth and go to Naked Tuesday. Because unless you're super, get offended easy, don't go. It is not an all ages show.
Sure.
But it's so much fun, and it's silly, and if you need to blow off steam in the middle of the week, man, it's the place to be.
For sure.
Yeah.
He's like the nicest dude.
So if you go to a show and you're blowing off steam and you have too many, how do you deal with first graders hungover? Kids were watching a movie today.
Well, for one of my students, this has never happened.
First of all, but if there are first graders listening to this show, shame on their parents.
They find things, man.
No, I know. Of course they do, yeah.
But if I were to get obliterated,
hypothetically speaking,
and if I had to go to school hungover, it would there'd be a lot of movies.
Super loud class to deal with.
Yeah, there'd be probably a few films. Many bathroom breaks, and some supportive teacher friends that you could.
Like, seriously, God, you got it. I used to have a boss, and I wouldn't even say where, because it was never bad, but like I could show up to work and be like, "Listen, man, just not today," and he'd be like, "Okay."
Yeah, that can't happen when you're teaching. Okay, kids, now it's time for some self-structured explorative play.
It's time for nap time. We don't nap anymore. No, you're going to nap today.
Today you are, because I might be.
Do you find, or do you look for opportunities to work music into your teaching?
Yeah. So I teach that songwriting project.
Yeah.
And then...
So STEM is bullshit, STEAM is cool, right?
Yeah. Totally. So during like snack time and lunch, I will play them music that I'm sure not a lot of them have heard.
Yeah.
Like a bunch of classic rock bands. And
are you ever surprised when a kid's like, "Oh, this is..."
Yes.
Oh, man, this is Jimmy Page.
I have an amazing story that just happened. So I taught my class... well, the way my school works, every Friday there's a performance that's put on by a different class every week. And I've just decided that...
I forgot this is a Montessori school, isn't it?
This one isn't. This is a different school.
It's not public school.
It's a charter school.
Okay, I was going to say, this does not sound like a public school.
And I decided, because our project is songwriting, whenever we have to do a performance, I'll just teach the class a song.
Yeah.
And I always try to keep it like a funny, kind of simpler, lighthearted song. So naturally, I chose Lowrider by War. So,
yeah.
So my students learn Lowrider, and we go to the great room to perform a song for everybody. And I've got my guitar, and the students are filing in. It's first and second grade classes come to see it. And the other students are filing in. And I just said to myself, I bet these kids probably haven't heard War Pigs by Black Sabbath. So I just started riffing out War Pigs by Black Sabbath. And one little first grader, he says, "What's that? That sounds super cool." I'm like, I bet none of you know what this is. And this tiniest, most innocent little looking girl just I look down and she scratches her chin and she says, that sounds like War Pigs by Black Sabbath. What? I was completely shocked and stunned. How does this little girl who's in first grade know War Pigs by Black Sabbath? My brother listens to Black Sabbath all the time. High five. You're awesome. This gives me hope.
Yeah. I remember, I didn't think about it. Like, I used to show my kids the Muppet Show all the time because I had them all on DVD. And my son was, I don't even know if my daughter was born yet. So I'm like trying to rock him to sleep for a nap, and I'm trying to find something on TV that is not going to hold his attention, but not be inappropriate.
Yeah.
And I'm like, ooh, planes, trains, and automobiles. He won't get these jokes. There's nothing scary. Let's do this. So he's like just kind of sitting there, and he looks over and he goes, "Oh, that's Steve Martin." And he's like 2.
Whoa.
Because he knew him from, the Muppet Show. And, he still to this day, one of his favorite musicians is Alice Cooper, because he grew up with Alice Cooper because he was on the Muppet Show.
Yeah.
It's...
How cool is that?
It's so neat. And one of my favorite things is kind of sharing music with them. And he's so funny. You'll be like, "Oh, what are your favorite concerts?" And he's like, "Oh, I really loved Five Finger Death Punch and Motley Crue." And you're like, those shouldn't belong in the same sentence.
No. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
love it.
It's so great. So where can people go to find out more? And is there visual samples of what this bullseye thing is, so they can be like, I still don't know what they're talking about?
Yeah, man. So on our on my Facebook page for this, which is facebook.com/the Swurnl.
The Swurnl. So that's the official name.
That's the official name of it.
Okay.
I know I was just kind of going
Swurnl
with it.
Works, yeah. Songwriting journal, right?
Yeah,
Swurnl.
Dude, you just. Oh, man.
I mean, that's pretty easy.
Yeah, man.
Don't ask me to spell it.
Well, I say it and people look confused.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I thought it was really obvious.
Well, it's some people didn't get it right away, but that's okay. I mean, I don't know. It's spelled SWURNL. So you would go to facebook.com/the Swurnl.
Oh, the Swurnl.
Yep.
Okay.
But I mean, if you type in SWURNL,
it'll probably be the only thing that comes up.
Right. So there are photos of it on there.
What did they retail for?
$20.
Oh, that's not bad at all.
I think it's fair.
Yeah.
And there are 30 spreads. So there's enough spreads for 30 songs.
So that's less than $1 a spread.
Yep.
Nice.
And, it even has a nifty little song index. So you have a title for your song. You can write the page number. You know how to find it easily. But yeah, you can go onto the Facebook page, check it out. You can also purchase it there. Mm-hmm. And then I will personally ship it to you because that's the level we're at right now.
Yeah, hey, man, that's where everybody starts.
Right,
yeah.
exactly. I love it. So much to learn. But yeah, it's cool. I'm excited.
Nice. Are you currently playing in bands or solo? Do you gig out anywhere?
I don't gig out really.
So just
just
single shows for 6-year-olds.
Yeah.
Who wants to hear War Pigs again?
Well, man, to just be entirely honest, it's and I think every performer feels this, but it's very anxiety inducing for me, and I feel like I always make way more mistakes when I'm playing in front of people than when I don't, when I'm by myself. So that kind of makes it something that is, not super attractive to me.
Right, I get it.
And I understand it's probably just something I just need to keep doing just to get over that.
Right.
So maybe eventually I am working on, I'm writing and producing an album.
Nice.
I feel like I've been saying that for the last 10 years, but now I'm really kind of focused on getting that done. So there's no, release date or end date.
Well, you're
yet,
in the right, area. The music scene here is like buzzing.
Yeah.
And everyone's so supportive. If you're in any of the arts, I feel like this area is just like lit up. I mean, there's a new theater group in town that's killing it.
Yeah.
And Break a Leg Theater, they've been on before. They just had a dinner and they had so they had a fundraising dinner because it's basically a nonprofit. Mm-hmm. And they had the actor that played Mufasa in The Lion King as their special guest. I mean, there's a lot of shit going on in town here, and it's
hell yeah, man.
If you can hear my voice, get to Plymouth because you're missing out. And the food here is amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can't wait to see more, and I can't wait for someone to be up on stage and being like, "Oh, I wrote this song in my Swurnl,"
dude.
Because that'd be amazing.
I would die. I'm so stoked, man. I get stoked about things way too easily and quickly. I just someone mentions they love this, or it'd be cool if it was in this store, and my mind just blows up into every single the big possibilities. I'm like, dude, you need to chill, man.
Oh yeah, you'd be like, oh my god,
right?
Dave Matthews is gonna use the Swurnl,
right? My god, man. You know how difficult it was for me not to tell people that I was doing this podcast.
Oh, you could have told people.
I could have told people,
and they would have been like, the what? Inebri-art podcast. But it's 4 people that listen to it.
But hey, man, I mean, it's still just trying to keep things a little more under wraps, just to, because I just always feel this need to like share like everything I'm doing, you know, because I want people to think I'm up to things. You know what I'm saying? But then I think I get too excited and talk about things that don't happen yet, and then for one reason or another they don't happen. I'm like, well, now I look like, you know.
Yeah, but you know, you can't get hung up on that shit.
You know,
whatever. That's their problem if they're worried. Weren't you going to do? Nah, whatever. I moved on.
Yeah, I moved on. I was above that.
I mean, think about how many times you hear about like movie projects that are supposed to come out, and they name a director, and then it just never happens. You know, so it's normal. You know, You know, I try to look ahead and focus on what I'm working on. I mean, don't get the wrong idea. I beat myself up daily about, I'm like, you're supposed to do that. But, you know, it's... If you're creating stuff, there are ideas that aren't going to pan out, aren't going to work, and that's just part of the deal.
Right,
you know?
Right. That's true.
But I think it's a cool idea. I wish you the best of luck, man.
Thanks, man.
And I look forward to seeing you at the next soundcheck thing.
Yeah, man, me too. I
think we're going to try and get a table there, because I didn't know that was a thing, because I don't really read things as much as I should. So I just kind of glossed over the fact that they had vendor tables. But, yeah, it's a great venue. So. Oh,
I love it there, man.
Yeah, it's very neat.
It's very neat. And there's a lot of big bands in this area. You know, that practice there, and it's cool. It's a very cool spot.
Nice. And so let's end this so we can go check out Naked Tuesday.
Yeah, word. Cool beans.
Okay, thanks for checking out the podcast. And don't forget to check out our other podcasts on the Inebri-art Podcast Network. There's the Bar Talk. There's Old Colony Cast. There's, of course, the Inebri-art Podcast. And our latest, Retro Redoctopus, a kind of nerd genre podcast that you can check out now, all available on our website at inebri-art.com. And pretty much available everywhere that podcasts are available, on Stitcher, iTunes, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, all those things. And if you don't see it where you're looking, let us know. We'll try to get onto that as well. And you can also email us at inebri-art@yahoo.com with your questions, complaints, and suggestions. And also, if you could take the time to rate and review us on iTunes, that would be phenomenal. That helps us get more exposure and bring more of these great podcasts to your ears. And thanks again for listening.